Hey guys, welcome back. It's Chad, founder of Easy Pool Academy. This video, we're going to talk about heaters and ways to heat your pool. Now, let me really start by walking you through something I really want you to know. If you put a heater on your pool, even the best heater that they make, and we're going to go over some of these, is you're not going to be able to swim year-round in an above-ground pool. It's just not really going to happen unless you're in a very warm climate region. Okay, if you are, then yeah, you might be able to swim year round. You know, you put these up in Florida, you'll be able to swim year round. However, in Florida, you can swim year round, so there's not a lot of above ground pools. Everybody invests in an in-ground pool. But anybody that's in a cooler climate than that, where we only get a certain amount of season, we want to extend that season as far as we can. I remember when I was in first grade, we lived in Miami for a year and we went swimming on Christmas Day. I mean, it blew my mind. Well, even in Georgia, one state above Florida, we don't have the luxury of doing that. Our winters get too cold and we're not going to swim year round. So even if you put a heater on an above ground pool, you're not going to be able to swim right in the meat of the real cold months. So, you know, and of course, this is going to change as you get more north and you get more into a colder climate. But my point is, I don't want you to be misled that you believe you're going to be able to swim year round. If you're in a colder climate, the only way you can really swim year round in an above ground pool is really to put it inside. Put it in some kind of building, build a building around it, you know, something to contain it a little bit, which some people do, but it's not a real popular thing. So I really want you to know that before we start off with heaters. So what we're doing with heaters is we're not trying to swim year round, because chances are we're not going to be able to. What we're trying to do is we're trying to extend our season. Or you're like me and you despise cold water and you just need your water warmer. So either one of those, whether you just want warmer water throughout your swimming season or you want to extend your season, that's what these heaters are for. And there's going to be 4 real types of ways to heat your pool that we're going to go over here with you. So let's go ahead and get started. The first thing is going to be solar blankets. Now, what a solar blanket is, and you can see it a little there in the picture, it's basically just a big, if you saw it, it would look like a big industrial piece of bubble wrap. You lay this on the pool, almost like a cover, you lay it on the pool when you're not using it, and that's going to help heat your water up. And then when you go to swim, you pull this cover off. So let's go over some of the key points here. Number one, a solar blanket really is going to be the most affordable way to heat your pool. You know, a solar blanket is going to run you, and of course this depends on what size pool you have, but anywhere, let's say, you know, from as low as $80 to as high as $220. And I'm just being loose with numbers here, but it's fairly inexpensive to be able to heat your pool up. And what it does is it insulates the pool from losing its heat. Here's the main thing I want you to know about solar blankets, the understanding of solar blankets, is they do not heat the water. The way an above ground pool works is it's getting all this heat during the day. And this is usually what ends up killing your swimming season, or ending your swimming season, is you get all this heat in the pool during the day. But then the night comes and the temperature drops real low. Let's say the temperature drops down to 55 degrees. You know, it's 80 during the day. You're getting nice heat. Your pool's warming up. But then it drops down to 55. Well, what happens is overnight, you're losing all that heat that's in the pool. So when the sun comes out tomorrow, it's got to warm that water up from such a cold temperature. What a solar blanket does is it doesn't really heat your water. It keeps the heat inside your pool, so when the night comes, you don't lose all that heat, and when you wake up the next morning and the sun comes out, it can warm your pool up from a warmer temperature, in turn warming the water, but not necessarily by heating the water, by insulating the water that's in the pool so it doesn't lose all its heat. That's how a solar blanket works. So to go over these key points, that's where I said it insulates the pool from losing its heat. Now, a solar blanket's a big old industrial piece of bubble wrap, basically. So it's fairly cumbersome. You know, if you got a smaller pool, you can take it on and off with one person, no problem. If you have a big pool, a really big pool, it's kind of a pain to have to pull this thing on and off all the time, okay? Normally what you do is you keep it on, you know, let's say everyone's opening up their pools sometime in May, where you might be able to swim in the month of April or even into March with a solar blanket. You just got to keep this on the pool during those months, and whenever you want to hop in, you take it off, you hop in. Once you're done, you put it back on. It's going to provide about 8 to 12 degrees of a warmer pool, which is really effective for a solar type heating device. 8 to 12 degrees is really good. It's going to get dirty unless you have somewhere to put it. This is normally how I recommend solar blankets for people. If you're not going to put a deck on your pool, a solar blanket is going to be a bit of a pain to you, because you're going to have to pull this thing off. It's this huge cover of industrial bubble wrap, and lay it on the grass. Then you're going to pick it up. It's going to carry that grass in, and you're going to put it in the pool, and it's kind of a pain. If you have a deck on your pool where you can pull it off and just set it on the deck and keep it clean, then that's the way to go. So if you know you're going to put a deck, a solar blanket is going to work well for you. If you don't have a deck, a solar blanket is going to be as much of a pain for you as it is going to be a benefit. So you kind of decide what you want to do, or, you know, just make you a spot that you can put it. Just keep that in mind. Now, the bottom line on solar blankets is it's a great starter heating for all pools. It's, you know, if you want your water a little warmer, you don't have a tremendous amount of money to spend, a solar blanket's definitely going to do it. I mean, it's bringing your water from 8 to 12 degrees higher, so it's definitely giving you more heat. It's fairly inexpensive. The negative side is a little more cumbersome, and you got to deal with it. So if you're wanting a little bit more warm water right off the giddy up here after you get your pool, and you want to get going with heating your water, a solar blanket's always a great way to start getting a little more warmer water in your pool. So that's a solar blanket. Let's move to the next type of heating system. These are going to be coiled solar heaters. Now, let me kind of explain to you the idea of a coiled solar heater. In the middle of the summer, let's say you want to go wash your car, and you grab your garden hose that's been sitting there baking in the sun all day. You turn that water on, and the first bit of water that comes out scalding hot. Well, that's because all this water's been in that garden hose, and the sun's been on it, cooking on that garden hose and heating the water up. That's exactly the exact same concept as a coiled solar heater. It's basically pumping all this water through that coil. The sun's beating down on that coil, warming it up. By the time it goes through a whole bunch of coil. By the time it gets back in the pool, the water's warmer. The coil solar heaters, they're pretty inexpensive. You know, at the time of this video, they were right around $100, give or take. So they're not that expensive. They're fairly small. They don't take up a whole lot of room. And that's one good thing for them. But you really want to kind of put them where you're going to get sun. They connect to your existing system, so you don't need anything special for them. You really just lay them on the ground and connect the hoses to your existing system, and this thing's ready to go. It's going to provide about 5 degrees. It's not giving you as much heat as a solar blanket will, but you don't have to, it's not as cumbersome to pull on and off. You know, it sits there and it just does its thing. You don't need to mess with it. That's good. It's not giving you as much heat, but it's not as much work. You just hook this thing up and let it go. And they have a limited life. What I mean by that is these things aren't going to last forever. They're not made of the best materials out there. You know, most people that I know are getting, you know, a handful of seasons out of them, and then they're usually buying another one. The bottom line on a coiled solar heater is they're good for the smallest pools. The problem with these coiled heaters is if you have a big pool, you'd have to link 4 or 5 of these things together to really give you any impact on heating up your water. So in my opinion, if you're going with a 15 or an 18-foot round pool, it'll work well for you. If you're going with a 12 by 24 or a 12 by 20 oval pool, it'll work well for you. Anything much bigger than that, it's not going to put a big punch on it. You know, you might end up putting this thing on there and it raises it 2 or 3 degrees. And in my opinion, that's a waste of time. You know, if you're going with the smallest of the above ground pools, then one of these are going to work well for you. And that really is the best way to use a coil solar heater. Now, keep in mind too with these coil solar heaters is you want them in the sun. You don't want to hook them up and put them in the shade. Make sure, you know, wherever they're going to be sitting next to your filter system. So make sure wherever your filter system is, you're going to have this heater sitting where you can get some sun on it. Because if you're not getting any sun, you're not getting much warmth and your pool's not going to warm up. Okay, so just keep that in mind. Let's go to our next one. Here we have our solar panel heaters. Now what these are is you buy these, they're about 20 feet long and they're about 2 feet wide, and you can attach a couple of them together. You know, technically in this picture here is like 2 of them attached together. These are working the same way as the coiled heater, where you're basically pumping water, like the example I gave you about water sitting in your garden hose. That's basically what these are doing. There's a whole bunch of tiny little tubes. It's pumping this water through these tiny tubes. It's coming back into the pool and the water's been warmed up. Now, these solar heaters are going to be a little more expensive, but they're also going to handle bigger pools. You know, if you have a medium-sized pool or a bigger pool, you can link a couple of these things together and it'll work well for you. But these are going to be more expensive than the coiled heaters. So keep that in mind, and the expense is really going to depend on what size pool you have. If you have a medium pool, you might can go with 1. If you have a big one, you might need 2 or 3. So you have to figure that out as far as it goes with expense. They take up a good bit of room. You know, the one thing I don't like about the solar panel heaters so much is you're sitting there looking at them. They're sitting there outside and you got to look at them. You know, you got to have a space to put them. You know, even in this picture we have on the side, what they've definitely done is, you know, they're sitting on some type of lean-to. Somebody must have built some kind of lean-to, you know, or you would just lay it in the grass. Some people try to attach them to rooftops and this type of stuff, which is okay. But if it's going to be on a 2 or 3 story rooftop, then you're going to need a bigger pump so you can pump water all the way up to the rooftop. So that's something you got to keep in mind with these, is they take up some room. Now, if you've got a place that you can put it or you can hide it and get sun on this, then it'll work well for you. It connects to your existing system, just like the coiled solar heater. You know, you just basically, once you lay this thing out, you just connect the hoses to your filter system and you're ready to go. Now, these provide more like a solar blanket, about 8 to 12 degrees, which is really good. You know, that's really positive. And they last for a while. They're fairly good. You know, I know a lot of people that have got 10 years or more out of these things. So those are the key points on the solar panel heaters. Here's the bottom line. They're really good for medium to small pools. The only reason I didn't put large pools in there is you got to start linking a bunch of these things together. And when I say they're good for medium and small pools, they're also good for the large in terms of heating, but you got to add a lot more together. Well, then the more you got to add together, the bigger space you need to have these things. I mean, you know, each panel's 2 foot by 20 feet long. You know, you tie 4 of these together, that's 8 foot by 20 foot. Most people I know don't have room to put something like this in their backyard if you're going to have a really big pool. So that's why I'm not a huge fan with them on the bigger pools, because they take up so much room and you kind of got to put them somewhere. So the bottom line is on these solar panels is you're going with a small pool or a medium-sized pool, you know, anything 27 round and smaller, or let's say 18 by 33 oval or smaller. These things will work well for you. Anything bigger than that, I wouldn't so much recommend them unless you got lots of room to have a big 8 by 20 panel sitting out there somewhere. So that's something to think about with the solar panel heaters. And then our last heater is the gas heater. Now our key points on this is they're going to be the most expensive. And they're going to be the most expensive by a good bit. A medium-sized gas heater going to run you around $1,500 just for the heater. But then you got to get gas to it. You got to get electricity to it. You got to install it. you're paying a plumber, you're paying an electrician. You know, normally you're spending maybe $2,500 to get this thing set up and going. So keep in mind with this that it does need gas and it does need electricity. And you're going to have to get that wired to it and a plumber to run gas for you. Which also means if gas, they make these in natural gas and in propane. So if you have a propane tank in your backyard, you know, you're set for these. Or if you have natural gas at your house, you're set for these. If you don't have gas at your house, then you probably want to go with a propane and get some type of propane tank out there. You know, like I said, these are the most expensive. There's a little more investment when it comes to the gas heaters. Now, they also connect to your existing system. You just plumb this thing into your pump and filter and you're ready to go. They provide as much heat as you want. With a gas heater, it's exactly like the thermostat of your house. You set your thermostat and you let this guy go. You let him run, you put it on 82 degrees. Anytime it drops down, it turns on, warms up the water, cuts itself off. Waits until the water cools off, cuts back on, turns itself off. So it works just like a thermostat in your house for your air conditioner or for your heater. They are by far the most consistent. You know, all the other heaters we've talked about are dependent on the sun. They're dependent on solar energy. If it's a super cloudy week, if you live in a region where it's always cloudy all summer, you're not going to get as much out of the heat of the solar systems as you are somebody who's getting sun on their solar system all the time. These gas heaters, it can be rainy, it can be cloudy, foggy, sun can be out. None of that matters. These things are going to keep your pool warm. So you really do have the most control over where your heat is with a gas heater. And they really are the plastic. You know, I mean, I've seen people have gas heaters on their pool for 25, 30 years. So, you know, every once in a while you got to replace a heating element in them or something like that down the road. But the heater itself is really going to work for you for the life of your pool. And the bottom line is it's good for any pool, any size pool, small, medium, large, whatever the case is. Just keep in mind, it's going to be a little more expensive off the giddy up with a gas heater, and it's going to cost money and gas to run this. Now, electricity-wise, they barely pull any electricity. But gas-wise, it costs money. You know, you're going to be running gas to heat your pool up, and that's going to cost some money. Keep that in mind with the gas heaters. That's what I believe you guys need to know when it comes to heaters and your different options of heating the pool. This is one of our awesome videos in our completely free series, the Essential Above Ground Pool Buyer's Guide video series. We're not selling you anything in this series. We're not telling you what to buy. What we're doing is we're giving you the information you need to make an educated decision on what's going to work best for your situation. It's 20 free videos. You can get instant access right now. Click the link here on the screen or down in the description. It's going to take you to the video series. I know it's going to be a huge help for you, and I'll see you guys there.